G'day hobby friends. Today I have a short sharp video on how I do some pretty cool looking urban sci-fi bases for my miniatures. Follow on to see how I do it. So here I am clearing away the orcs that I'm going to use for these bases. I'm using them as proxies for Goliath Gang for N95 or Necromunda 95. A bit obscure, I know. The main point of these bases is that we're using the natural grain they come with on top. You just need to scour in a few lines. Here I'm using a hobby saw and a knife to make it look like cracks or joins in the concrete. Then sparingly add some super glue and very fine texture. No rocks, just grains of sand and some baking soda is all that I'm using here. Any additional rocks that stick on, I flick off because I'm only looking for scaled in gravel, as you would imagine, to be lifted up from worn out concrete. That is all. As you can see here, I'm using baking soda. It's probably the best thing to use. Just do away with the sand, just use baking soda even. At this point in the game, hobby friends, less is more. At the end of the day, I want you to think about an open asphalt car park with a few scattered bits of debris here and there. And that's it, really. Keep it simple. I'm chopping up some styrene tube, the smallest one I have, just to make some shells for an auto pistol, for example, or a couple of shells from a shotgun, the slightly longer ones, and a little bit of chain that I had lying around. And that is really all that's needed. For priming, it's Mechanica Standard Grey, and I use this paint mixer stick that I got from Bunnings, less than $1 each. I always have a few of them around. And I have a large roll of 3M double-sided tape. As it gets used up, I just put some more on it. Works a charm. Don't need to buy anything fancy. This is seriously one of the best priming solutions I've found for your miniatures. And just like that, we're primed and into dry brushing. Start off with some rust grey, Fenrisian grey, and work your way up. Just add bits and bobs of white as you go along and slowly build it up. I think I did a total of 4 or 5 layers here on the dry brush and I was done. As a dry brushing brush here, I am just using an old makeup brush from my wife who didn't need it anymore. Quick wash and as good as gold for dry brushing. For final steps, I use some Pro Acryl Magnesium from Adepticon range. This is the new shit hot stuff as far as I'm concerned, better than Let Belcher, don't tell anyone. And then a bit of red here and there, just for the details that we'd baked in when we primed. Right now, you could leave it. You could literally just stick these on the bottom, do the rims, and you're done. That's the point of these bases. They're so simple, and they still look great. However, if you're like me, you always like to push it and make life a little harder for yourself. However, I think the results speak for themselves. The first step I do is add some rubbish. Don't know about you, but car parks often have a bit of rubbish lying around. I'm just using my regular Sci-Fi posters that I have a drawer full of, which you can just find in Google. Remember guys, not too much, just add a little few, bit of watered down Mod Podge mat, and on she goes. I then follow this up with some line markings, because that's what I think about when I think about modern asphalt, roads, car parks, etc. Just sit back, think, what have you seen around? And I'm sure I'd still be using it in the 41st millennium. Just get onto it. For masking tape, I'm using some Tamiya 5mm and 3mm, and I'm just taking a few seconds to think exactly the sort of spacings that you could imagine would translate well. You need to think they need to look in scale, but they also need to look like a readable for us, the giants leaning over the table, so to speak. But otherwise, don't overthink it. A few seconds of prep and just run with it. Now, to really get the line mark effect, I used a stippling motion with a stiff brush. White for the white paint, obviously. If you didn't have a grey base, do grey first, then white. And then for the yellow, I started off with a bright orange, Troll Slayer orange in this case. And then 2 layers of that with a Flash Gits yellow over the top. I think it was 2 layers of the yellow too. You need to remember, when you're looking at asphalt, you'll still see bits of the asphalt peeking through. If you can achieve that effect, you'll succeed. Don't know about you, but I find pulling masking tape is always so satisfying. Oh yeah. Nah, but seriously, do this quickly, don't let the paint dry too much. Just whip it off, and then that way, if there's any bleed through, you can tidy it up.
Now it's time to dip it. I'm dipping it in my jar of Necroscunge, as I like to think. Just a homemade terrain wash I've got here. It's the jar, mostly water, and then I add 2 parts black ink, 2 parts burnt umber, 1 part green added to it, to the water, and I just kind of mix it all up to my liking. And that gives me a nice grimy, greeny, scungy look like you would think you'd find in the underhive. I also add a touch of viscosity and matte medium, all Liquitex products, to basically most of a jar of water. And as you can see here, I'm just coming in, wicking away the excess with a clean brush and leaving them to dry on a kebab skewer.
This, hobby friends, is another use case for why you should have these cheap Sharpie acrylic paint pens.
Don't know about you, hobby friends, but when I'm painting the bottom rims of my miniatures, it always seems to take forever for that black paint to dry. These are so fast. I literally paint one half of the rim, put it down, grab the next one, pick it up, paint it, and once I've gone through my set of 10 or what have you, I start again and it's all done. Literally a couple of minutes and it's all done and it looks nice and even. Bonus tip, I also happen to use the same acrylic pen but in white to paint the names on all my miniatures. I tend to find that putting names on your skirmish miniatures adds an extra level of fun and depth to the game. It's not just a name on a sheet, it's an actual physical model. Let me know down below if you do the same thing as well.
Remember, hobby friends, when you're applying blood, tell a story with it. Don't go too overboard, but don't be shy either.
Here I'm simply using Citadel's Blood for the Blood God. Technical paint. It's a great paint. I love using it. I go through so much of it, along with Gore by Dirty Down and some other blood products that I like to use. But seriously, Blood for Blood God, cracking product. Get it. I think it's worth it.
That's all for today, friends. Let me know in the comments below how you go about making some easy bases. Just like that. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.